my entire job as a tax strategist is to make you look poor.
Mhm.
That's my entire job. That's what you pay us to do, is make you look poor. Okay. That's great. That's fantastic for the 20 something years that you own your business and you're building it into this multi-billion dollar and got all these clients and all these things. Okay. That's fantastic until you go to sell it.
Hello, Empower Nation. Welcome to Empower Her Money podcast. I'm your host, Angela Duncan, speaker, best-selling author, serial entrepreneur. We talk all things money and business. Today's episode, I get to interview Shauna, better known as the Tax Goddess. She is one of the top 1% tax strategists in the country. We're going to talk about taxes. She's going to share the 3 biggest mistakes you are likely making on your tax returns, the difference between a tax strategist and a CPA, and how knowledge is power. Check out this episode. Hi, Shauna. Welcome to Empower Her Money podcast.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited about today.
Me too. This is an exciting topic for me. Obviously, I did not record with you in April because working 12 days a week. But let's talk about how you got started, Shauna, on this tax goddess journey.
Oh, you are so sweet. Well, where do I want to say I started that? So I actually started in astrophysics of all things, not even close to taxes from that realm. The very long story short, and if anybody wants to read the whole story, they can read it in our book, The 6% Life. But the very long story short, I came home for summer break, sitting across the table from my mom, my goddess, okay, sitting across the table. She's opening her mail. She's German, very stoic, very, always has her stuff together. Opening the mail, pulls out a letter, puts it down on the table, pushes back from the table, but oh, what's going on? Long story short, got a letter from the IRS, not happy about it, talking about my CPA, my tax attorney. Nobody can seem to figure out how to get these people to get off. I don't want to pay them this much tax, these kinds of things. So I go back to school, still doing astrophysics, start taking tax classes, fell in love because taxes are a giant game of chess. You have whatever your pieces are, married, kids, business, whatever it is. You have a set of rules, follow that set of rules, and you don't go to jail, which we like. So no jail on that front. And of course, then you get to lower your tax. So it's how the title of the book actually came about. The 6% Life is the average tax rate we get for our clients, 6.92%. So it's pretty cool.
Very nice. Now, you've been doing this for a little bit. The podcast is about money and teaching, especially female entrepreneurs. So let's start with the knowledge is power topic. What does that mean and why is that important?
Knowledge is power. Well, I think the biggest thing for me in my specific space is knowing the difference between a tax strategist and a CPA or a tax preparer.
Yes.
As you said, knowledge is power, right? So a lot of people, when we get calls and they say, listen, I've been with my CPA, my tax preparer, whatever, for 20 years, love the guy, love the lady, whoever it is, they do a great job. I've never been audited, but, and it's always that but at the end of whatever sentence, right? So the biggest complaint that we hear is, well, they've been doing my first stuff for so long, but they really aren't bringing me any strategy. And I think for a lot of people, they just don't know that they're specialists, right? So if you look at Google, I think Google says it's something like 665,000 CPAs in all of the US. Out of those people, there's only 60,000 with masters in tax, which is the first level of specification, right? You get a CTC, a CTP, a CTS, and each one of those, right? Letters, more and more letters, right? Each one of those takes you up the pyramid of specialization here. So at the very top, CTS, Certified Tax Strategist, there's only 15 in the entire country that do what I do.
Wow.
Right. So if you are going to your tax preparer expecting that they're going to be giving you strategies, that's not their job. Their job is to take the information you have, get it on the forms, fill it out properly, make sure you don't go to jail, right? No audits, don't go to jail. But your strategist job is to work with you, your business, your world, your finances, your rentals, like whatever it is you have, and your bookkeeper before the end of the year. Make all of the tweaks, make all of the changes so that when you take your files to your tax preparer, your total net profit is this big, which of course means your tax is that big. So I think that's the biggest, if I had anything, knowledge is power. Knowing there's a difference and knowing who's currently on your team, probably the biggest one.
Yeah, so look for that alphabet. And if your CPA doesn't have the alphabet, then I mean, it is important. I mean, maybe perhaps for like someone who has one job and nothing that they're going to be able to take advantage of. But there's this IRS tax codes that are out there. They wrote it for us, but yet most of us have no idea where they're at, what they mean, or how to use them.
Exactly. So getting the right people on the team, the right seats on the bus, right? Getting them on your team, all about it. So
you're making me want to go back to school and just like take some classes. I want to learn more.
Well, I will admit it only took about 25 years to get to the knowledge level that I'm at. So it might be a few years, but otherwise I love it. Education is key. So I'm all over it.
Oh yeah, all about education, not for me. If anyone's listening, you need a tax strategist, go to Shauna. Don't come to me. Awesome. So one of the other things that we were talking about is the fear of failure. Like, don't fear failure. What does that mean?
Yeah. Well, and of course, my brain, again, I draw everything back to tax. I apologize. The tax goddess comes out, right?
Yeah.
There are a couple of fears of failure you should have. Please don't do anything illegal. That would be a big failure. So don't just stay away from that realm. You'll be fine. But otherwise, life is about learning, right? We go back, right? And one of the bits of learning, so I always bring this back to when you were a little kid, and your mom said, do not put your hand on the burning stove, you're going to get hurt. What did we all do? Touch, right? And like, how did we learn? We learned by touching the hot stove or trying to pet the kitty cat with its claws out or like whatever it is. Like that's how we learn things as a species is there's a failure and we learn, right? Now, some of us are lucky enough to be able to read a book and go, oh, I will take that and build it into my understanding, okay? Some of us, the downsides to being a redhead and a Taurus, very direct and bull in a china shop, right? Some of us are not that smart. And so we actually have to experience. And so I look at failure, it's very rare that the type of failure that could exist that could literally destroy everything is very, very, very rare, right? I mean, you really have to do something. IRS audit, throw you in jail. Like you have to do some really big, bad stuff to be able to get to that level. But little failures, right, are things where, again, we go back to having a team. If you have a team, they can help guide you through a failure. If you have a failure, you can fix the failure. If you have a failure, you can find somebody who's already had that failure that can tell you how to get out of that failure faster than they did, right? So failures, in my opinion, not that you ever want a failure, you want everything to be a success, but they exist, they're gonna happen, you're gonna burn your hand on the stove. Figuring out how to fix it as quickly and as effectively and efficiently as possible. Have a team, have a tribe. Who do you talk to? You listen to great podcasts to get that kind of information. That's my go-to.
Yeah, I think my fear is to be audited. You know, I'm a conservative person. I don't live in the gray area because I just think that's the not area to live in. But for someone like me that says, you know, I'm fearful of the audit process. When it happens, if it happens to someone, what are some before it happens tips that you would give to people?
100%. And I'm going to go a little bit meta here, okay? Because I love the fact that you're saying, listen, I'm conservative, right? We call this the aggression scale, 0 to 10. 0 meaning the IRS never calls you never, ever. 10 meaning we're all going to jail. Okay, so there's a scale here. And every single person has to pick where they are and where their team of advisors is on that scale. So for example, like you've just said, I'm ultra conservative, right? And so I might put you at like a 2. Like I don't want to pay too much tax, but like I really don't want to talk to anybody, right? So I'm going to be a 2, okay? I am, on the other hand, because I'm trained, because I know all of these things, I've done it for so long, right? I'm an 8. I know where to push the envelope to. I'm a redhead. Red and orange do not look good. We're not going to jail anytime soon, okay? Like, it's just not happening. But if you tell me you're a 2 and I become your advisor, I will bring myself down to a 2 and I will only give you the advice that you want to receive, right? I'm not going to give you a level 8 tax strategy because you don't want to be there, and that's fine. So step 1 is find the team that supports where you are. You're the client, you're the taxpayer, you're the center of your own world from that standpoint. They got to meet you. So be asking that question of your team. This is, where are you? And then tell them where you are and see if it's a match, right? And then secondly, if you get an audit, because let's back up, right? Even at a 0, even at a -5, you have a chance of being randomly pulled. I mean, you didn't do anything. The computer just said, today is Angela's day. Ding, here you go. Here's your audit. Okay. So the things that you can do to protect yourself as much as possible. Document, some more document. Okay. It's all about documentation, and it's all about having the information. The IRS allows deductions for anything that is ordinary, necessary, and reasonable. Those 3 words: ordinary, necessary, reasonable. So if you have the backup documentation as to why, for example, I see your framed artwork behind you, the dollar bill. Why is that reasonable for your business, specifically your business, right? Listen, I'm a podcast about empowering women. I got pink on one side and dollars on the other. Women, business, money. That's what I do. Is this decor reasonable for what I do? Absolutely. It describes what I do. So when you look at any expense, anything that you're trying to spend, ordinary, necessary, and reasonable, and then document it, right? Why is the pink chair, which I'm in love with, by the way, why is the pink chair ordinary, necessary, and reasonable for what you do? It meets with my brand. Okay, fine. So I think for me, it's all about documentation. I know that's where people struggle a lot. Like, what do I keep? How long do I keep it? When do I keep it? What kinds of documentation? Like, is a picture of a receipt enough, or do I need the actual physical receipt that turned white in the heat? There's all like millions of questions, and good or bad, the answer to those questions are very specific to what it is you're looking at. So general information, get as much documentation as you can, specific answers to specific questions, talk to your team, get the answers from them, get their answers in writing, right? So that you have it to rely on. Like, this is what they told me, and I hired a professional for a reason. Documentation.
Yeah. And I think I was married for a long time, and my ex used to make fun of me because I kept paper. And I don't know if it's true, but hold it for 7 years. And I would keep it. And then we went through a divorce. He's like, why do we have so much paper? I said, well, I was scared of being audited, so I want paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you did the right thing, and you nailed 7 years, right? The IRS, unless you commit fraud. So again, no level 10s for you, Angela. You're a level 2.
Nope.
Okay, we're no fraud. So unless you're committing fraud, you want to keep all paperwork for 7 years. Anything related to IRS, taxes, deductions, any of that. The only thing that you would keep for longer, and a lot of people don't know this, the only thing that you would basically keep permanently forever is records on any physical real estate that you own. So the purchase HUDs, the sales HUDs, any kind of title transfers, those kinds of things, you want to keep that paperwork permanently forever in case the escrow company didn't record it properly, because that has happened. So
that's great info. I've been in the real estate space a long time. I think I tell people, ask your CPA. I'm going to start saying, ask your tax strategist, no longer CPA, and keep it forever. So got it. Okay.
Forever. You got it. You got it.
So, I mean, obviously keeping books is important. Talk about that. Even from like, today I decided I'm going to start a company. I can do bookkeeping sometime in the future. I mean, I hear that from a lot of female entrepreneurs, and it cringes, but you're the expert here. So tell us what we need to know.
So I always, my answer to this is always, do you want a little bit of pain now, or you want a lot of pain later? What is your choice, right? I don't care what you choose, but it's your choice. And I want to set that up front right now. So a little bit of pain, which most people will go for, okay, I'll take a little bit and I'll just do it every day. Book on your calendar, get it set, make it the same time every single day, 5:30 or whatever, just before dinner time, like whatever you're doing, 5:30 every day, half an hour, I am going to do my books. Okay. Now, it might take you 5 minutes because you didn't spend any money that day and you didn't make any money that day. So you're literally logging in, looking at your financial statement, QuickBooks, or if you're in Excel, or however it is that you're going to do your books from that standpoint. Side note, hint, hint, start with QuickBooks. Less pain, start with QuickBooks. But yeah, look at it, look at your numbers, because side note, complacency will also cause problems. So if you don't do your bookkeeping for 3 years and then you get audited, now we're talking big pain. You don't remember what you bought at the receipt that says XYZ 794 for $2.23. You might as well throw it away. If you don't know, the IRS certainly doesn't know. That means no deduction for you. So my big recommendation, get in the habit, because it's all about the habit. 30 minutes every day, you look at your numbers, you look at your bank account, you look at your financials, you input any receipts or any deposits from that day, whatever it is. Make sure you're doing it every single day. If you do that, and side note, I would recommend you also learn a little bit about Profit First. If you haven't done Profit First, love that system. Side note, great app.
I was going to say there's a great book called Profit First. So yeah.
Absolutely. Mike McCallitz, we're in love with it. There's an app called Cash Goblin that's just launching. Like, check them out if you're Profit First. Anyway, yeah, between doing your stuff every day, 30 minutes, right? And if you want to, following Profit First, you will, not maybe, not if, you will be successful from a financial standpoint. Will, like, hands down, I have zero qualms about saying you will be successful if you can follow those two. So.
Yeah. All right. So then on the other end, when I'm talking to business owners, a lot of times when they're starting their business, I always recommend to them to have the end in mind. Even, is that going to be a sell? Are you going to shut down, give it to your kids? The end is very important for you to think about too. Now, talk from a tax perspective and how we value companies, right? Based on information. If it's not correct, talk about your opinion on that.
Well, and this is always one of the hardest things as a tax professional to talk about, because listen, my entire job as a tax strategist is to make you look poor. That's my entire job. That's what you pay us to do, is make you look poor. Okay. That's great. That's fantastic for the 20-something years that you own your business and you're building it into this multi-billion-dollar and you've got all these clients and all these things. Okay. That's fantastic until you go to sell it. Because if I make you look poor for 20 years, who wants to buy a business that is breaking even or failing, right? I mean, maybe not exactly the best piece of it, right? So you get a couple of different factors here. Yes, you have to have a good set of books, because any buyer is not going to say, "Oh, Angela, you seem so nice. Of course, here, have $10 million for this thing with no numbers." Like, yeah, no, right? Like, you need to have numbers. You have to have financials. They have to be reasonable. They have to be well done, reconciled. When you get to a certain point, maybe hire a professional bookkeeper or bookkeeping team. You got to have good numbers, right? But the other side of this is looking at the actual sale. How do you build value for a buyer, right? Having systems. If it's you and only you, and you're doing all the things, the buyer's going to buy a job. They're not buying a business, right?
Yes.
So how can you systematize? How can you outsource? How can you delegate? Looking at that profit number, 3 to 5 years, a minimum of 3 from the year you want to sell, right? Maybe stop making yourself look so poor. You might have to pay some taxes for a few years to get a better number here, okay? Unless you can explain what you're doing, what's happening with the strategies, right? Yeah. There are so many pieces to this. Side note, I know you didn't ask me, the first book that I wrote, 6% Life is the second book. The first book that I wrote, Tax Goddess Guide to Starting a Small Business, there's an entire chapter on exiting. So if somebody's looking for, you can find both of them on Amazon. If somebody's looking for all the details, that book's about 500 pages long. It is all the details. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great information. I'm curious to know, and sometimes we say common knowledge is not common, right? So what's common knowledge for you, obviously for the rest of us, is not common. Even me teaching money, taxes is definitely not something I'm good at. But what do you think is like one of the most overlooked IRS maybe exemptions or codes that business owners don't take advantage of that the regular CPA paper pusher doesn't know?
Just doesn't know. Yeah. And I always want to be careful here because I do believe that CPAs, tax preparers, they're trying to do their best, right? They're just not specialists. So as you said, they just don't know, just like you don't know, right?
Right.
The three biggest ones, I'm going to give you three if that's all right. Three biggest ones that we see. The first one is getting your kids on payroll. So if your kids are age 7 or more and they're not on your company payroll, like now, like yesterday, like go get that done. Okay. The second one is the use of the Augusta rule. Sometimes it's called the master's exemption.
Mm-hmm.
So having your business pay you personally for using your personal space. I live in Arizona. The low end of that scale is about $500 per event times 14 events a year. The high end of that scale in Arizona is about $18,000 per event. So you can make some massive money completely tax-free and double dip it because you get the cash and the tax deduction. So pretty cool on that front. And then the third one, honestly, is something that, we talked about the aggression scale. It's really like a -2 on the aggression scale. But most people just miss it. They just flat out miss it. It's something called an accountable plan. Okay. Now, many of us, we have home offices. Okay. We use our personal cars or our personal cell phones for business uses, right? And we write those things off through our accountant. Okay. If you don't have an accountable plan, which is a one-page official document that you stick in with your corporate records, if you don't have that and the IRS comes to audit you, they will take away all of those deductions. No home office, no car, no mileage, no cell phone, none of it. Nothing where it was personal money that you spent on behalf of the business. Okay?
Wow.
We had a case, one of the biggest cases we've ever seen, personally, a tax goddess was $190,000 that the IRS took back.
Wow.
All legal, all ordinary, necessary, reasonable, right? But she was missing one single page document and the IRS yanked it.
Ooh.
So, right. So if you don't have an accountable plan, talk to your preparer, talk to your strategist. Okay, get an accountable plan. It can be very deadly, especially as a small business, because you spent the money. So yeah.
Yeah, I will say for sure, I have no idea what that last one is. The first two I know of, I should say, but that last one, I don't even know what that is. So we'll talk about that later.
Well, hopefully we'll get it sorted as soon as possible. So love it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, Shauna, I have a fun question for you. If you could have a superpower, what would it be and why?
Oh, my brain just went through like 8 superpowers all at once. I'm going to go with being able to fix a problem at the snap of the fingers. Whatever the problem is, car tire ran out of air, fixed. Breakfast waffle was charred, fixed, right? Like nothing, doesn't have to be all big, fixing the world's problems, whatever. But like the little annoyances that just, you stubbed your toe, fixed, remove the stub, whatever it is. I would take that. I would take that.
Yeah, I would think is that you have probably a high value on time too. So that saves you time.
Very much so. Very much so. Yeah, you burn your toast and you spend another 15 minutes making new toast. So yep, I'll take it.
Shauna, do you work with clients all across the US or you have to be state specific?
We do. Yeah, no, clients all across the US, around the globe. It's anyone who pays US taxes. So normally that's US citizens, green card holders. You could be living in Hungary and paying taxes to the US. So anyone paying US taxes, that's us.
Awesome. All right. If our audience wants to get in touch with you, Shauna, what is the best way for them to reach you?
Oh, thank you. I am super easy to find, taxgoddess.com. We've got a team of a little over 100 people in global, 17 different countries. So all here to support, all specializing in tax strategy. So happy to help.
Yay. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was way too much fun.
Yes. All right. We'll talk soon.
All right.
Thank you for listening to Empower Her Money podcast. I am grateful for you. Please make sure to leave us a 5-star review, like this podcast, share it, subscribe, and let's keep teaching others how to take control and be empowered with their finances.